My name is Sergei Boutenko, and I have been eating raw food for 12 years. I started eating raw food because I was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. I was one of 4 people in my family to get sick with something. And through raw food I was able to heal myself. I was able to have more energy, to lose weight, and live a diabetes-free life. Now, people are always curious when I'm teaching classes what I do, how I live, what I eat. And while I explain this to them, I feel like it's not reaching them. They keep on asking me, it's not reaching enough people. So I thought that I would make a little video about my life to give you, the viewer, the listener, a glimpse of who I am and what I do.
My name is Jeff Golden, and I'm a friend of the Boutenko family, and I wanted to sit down with Sergei and find out more about his life. So what is raw food?
What is raw food? Raw food is not cooking food over 105 degrees, and it basically consists of eating nuts, seeds, berries, fruits, vegetables, grains. Some raw fooders choose to eat meat. However, we are raw food vegans, so we don't eat meat. It's basically those few things.
So essentially raw meat if you're a meat-eating raw fooder?
Some people do eat raw ground beef and raw chicken and raw fish.
Now that was a very big change. And how did you react to it at first?
At first, well, actually, I was in school when most of the change occurred. When my family switched over to eating raw foods, I was going to 3rd grade, didn't know anything was happening. My mom had been reading a couple weeks prior to that, and I found that a little strange. She didn't read that much. So one day I came home from school and saw that the cupboards looked a little different, and the kitchen seemed somehow a little emptier. The microwave was missing, and all our TV dinners were replaced by a bowl of fruit and a bowl of vegetables. And at that point,
You said, yippee, this is great.
I said, yippee, I don't think so. My mom rushed in the kitchen and she said, honey, guess what? We're going to be raw fooders now. And I said, oh, give me the insulin shots.
So how long did you resist? And did you resist very hard?
I resisted very hard at first. The major thing for me, the major driving factor for resisting was that it was going to alienate me from my peers. And as a little kid, I was really worried of what other people thought of me. I was afraid that I was already Russian and had an accent, and kids made fun of me for that. I was overweight, they made fun of me for that. I was worried that raw food would just fuel that fire even further.
You were 7 or 8 years old?
I was 9 years old.
Okay. And so did that in fact happen? Were you made fun of as a raw fooder?
It did happen to some extent, but it's funny because in the end it gained me a lot of popularity. At first people would say, hey, you know, look at that kid, he's fruit boy, he's only eating fruit. And I would kind of just resist a little bit, cringe inside. But the more that people found out that I ate food, the more I started hearing, hey, Sergei eats salads. Salads are cool, I like to eat salads. The more people would come over to my house and get to make all the gourmet raw food that we make, and we draw them into the process, the more they thought that it was interesting, and the more people started knowing me and liking me for that.
What gave you the discipline to stick with it when there were so many convenient snack foods that you were used to around?
The discipline to stick with raw food came not from convenience, it came from the health that I gained. Like I said earlier, I was overweight when I was 9 years old. I weighed about 110 pounds in 3rd grade, which is at least 30 pounds overweight, if not more. I also had diabetes, which the symptoms of a diabetic are high blood sugar, running to the bathroom very frequently every 5-10 minutes, having mood swings go up and down. And so when I really tried eating raw foods for 2 weeks, I'm not going to say that my diabetes vanished completely, but I noticed enough of a difference that I said, okay, wow, I feel a lot better. I don't have to rush to the bathroom. It's very annoying to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. I noticed myself losing weight even though I was eating as much as I wanted. So even as a little kid, all those things started accumulating in my head.
A reasonably typical day of eating that you could talk about, or foods that are very standard for you, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
When I first started eating raw food, I like to eat very complex foods. There's sort of this gourmet food aspect to raw foods where you can make chocolate cakes, you can make garden burgers and live pizzas, and all kinds of things where you're trying to mock cooked food. So when we first started out, that's what we enjoyed eating. We made very complicated breakfast, lunches, and dinners, which was very good, and it served its purpose at first. But more and more, as I stuck with raw food, I started noticing that more and more I craved simple food. I found myself choosing an avocado and an apple over a prepared gourmet cheesecake. So currently, if I were to lay out my day in terms of what I eat, I would wake up, and usually I don't like to eat breakfast, so I might have a green smoothie, which is just greens and fruit blended up in a blender. And that usually keeps me going until about noon, where I would have a big salad for lunch. I might snack a little bit, maybe eat a mango or a peach or a couple of nectarines in between lunch and dinner. For dinner again, I would have a salad. I think my favorite food is salad. I couldn't live without salad. And then maybe before sleep, sometimes I would eat some more fruit or a vegetable or so, but that would be about the typical day. Maybe a smoothie somewhere in there again.
Hi, I'm Brenda, and I live in Ashland, Oregon, and I'm a yoga teacher and therapist here, mother of 4. And I have been practicing yoga for decades and practicing raw food lifestyle for about 5 years now. And I'm going to sit down this afternoon and have a discussion with Sergei. Your mother, your parents made the decision for you based on your health challenges that this is the diet you would go on. So I'm wondering if there was a point along the way where you as an individual and young adult made the decision for yourself. Yes, this is my choice. This is the way I choose to eat.
The major misconception about being a child and a parent is that you can force your kids to do something, and honestly, you can't, because if children want to do something, they will.
They'll find a way.
Maybe they'll do it differently around you, but then when they're in their friend circle or somewhere else, they'll do it differently. So my parents did explain to me the benefits of raw food, and in very clear terminology told me, okay, this is why we think that you should try it, because you're a little kid, you have your whole life ahead of you, you don't want to take shots for the rest of your life. Made me understand. They used those words that parents know how to use, very basic terms. And so that planted a seed, and you know, for the first couple of weeks I still cheated a little bit, and I'd go to school and be tempted with pizzas and all kinds of candy. So I still ate it, but the majority of what I ate was at home, and so I ate mostly raw, and noticed enough of a difference that it grasped my curiosity. I was very obese when I was 9 years old, as well as diabetic. So I started losing weight. My diabetes symptoms started reducing just in 2 weeks, you know. And so I was definitely inspired to keep going.
Caught your attention.
Caught my attention.
Yeah.
And after 2 months, I didn't really crave anything from my previous life, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
The pizzas didn't bother me so much. And every day after those 2 months just kept getting easier and easier and easier. And then pretty soon, you know, one day, a couple of years ago, I realized I don't even like drinking tea, because the idea of putting warm food in my body just feels kind of weird.
Doesn't appeal. In your book that you and your sister put together, Eating Without Heating, one thing caught my attention. A lot of things caught my attention, but this intro to the book, where Victoria says, "Until then, I will continue to cheer on my young raw food colleagues as their lives blossom forth, as they continue spreading the gift of raw foods to ever-widening circles, and as life itself guides their destiny as role models for future humanity." So I'd like to hear your thoughts about how you see yourself as a role model.
You know, I was actually looking on the internet the other day on wikipedia.com, and under raw food, our family is listed as one of the foremost promoters of raw food and just a driving force behind the health food movement. And that was really cool for me to see, because sometimes even doing the best thing, being the best that I can be, I have my low points, and I feel like maybe I shouldn't be doing this, or I should be doing something else. My doubts.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, something hit me, and it said, bam, your contribution, your family's contribution has made a difference. It's perpetuated the health food movement, probably organic foods, health food stores. And so I felt re-inspired to keep doing what I'm doing, teaching raw food, and more importantly, just teaching health, because there are so many more aspects to health than just what you eat, like exercise.
Right.
Now, I heard you say that typically you'll have a salad for lunch and for dinner. Does it get monotonous?
If raw food ever gets monotonous to me, then I change something. But usually I follow my body, because nobody knows me as good as me. I've been with myself the longest. And just see what I crave. If one day I crave salad, then I eat salad. Usually I crave salad every day. Every day for lunch, every day for dinner. If I don't feel like eating salad, I'll make myself some pate, maybe out of almonds, and make some nori rolls. Or I'll skip the salad, make a smoothie. Or perhaps I will eat that same chocolate cake, but usually I just crave salad.
Do you change the salads? Are the salads different from time to time?
I have never eaten the same salad twice, and I've been eating raw food for 12 years.
Do you have any greens that you favor more than any other?
If I were to tell you what I favored, I'd have a really long list. I don't really have a favorite per se, because that favorite keeps changing. Currently, I devour romaine lettuce with a lot of joy.
What is it like socially these days? You talked some about adapting to your peer group before. How about now? Has it always been easy to blend in with pretty much whoever you wanted to?
Socially now, I'm 21 years old. I think it's easier than ever to adapt. I am a student of communication. I studied communication in college. And what we learned in communication is that people are always trying to synchronize with one another. It's called interaction synchrony. And you'll notice if you're sitting with a group of people in a circle, if one person puts their feet one way and the other people happen to look at that person, the rest of the room will start setting their feet up the same way. So I was thinking about that and trying to see how that played into part with me eating raw food. And let's take, per se, the going out to the restaurant setting. A lot of raw fooders think it's very difficult to go out and socialize over dinner if you're eating raw food. But basically, if you think about interaction synchrony, nobody really cares what you're eating when you're eating together in the restaurant, because you don't go to the restaurant to talk about the food that you're eating. You go to the restaurant to catch up and talk about your friendship. So if both people are sitting there and chewing, they're in sync with each other. Therefore, there's harmony and there's no awkwardness. If I were the type of raw fooder that would go out and not order a salad or bring some food with me, as I sometimes do, bring a watermelon, tell the chef to cut it up and bring it back out to me, I would be sitting there not eating, and while the other person was eating, we would be out of sync with each other. My mouth wouldn't be moving, your mouth would be. So then it would be kind of awkward, and then there'd be more focus on the fact that I ate differently.
Do you take any vitamin supplements?
I don't believe in vitamins or supplements.
How come?
I don't believe in vitamins and supplements primarily because the best vitamins and supplements are made out of what? They're made out of natural foods that you can find in your garden: kale, spinach, celery, alfalfa. If you take the best supplements and you look on the back, that's where all the vitamins and supplements and minerals come from. So my theory is, why not just eat those foods fresh, which I do every day.
Do all of your friends eat healthily?
I would say that the majority of my friends don't eat any specific way. A lot of them eat meat. I don't discriminate in terms of what people eat and whether or not they should be my friends.
Is it ever difficult for you sitting down with someone and seeing what they're eating?
It's never difficult for me to sit down and see what my friends are eating, even if they're eating steak or French fries, because me eating raw food for me is a personal choice. I choose to do that for myself. I don't feel as if I am better than them because I eat my salad while they eat their French fries. It just is what it is. To me, it works.
You've never felt any missionary zeal about this?
Oh, don't get me wrong. I have felt a lot of missionary zeal, particularly in the beginning. When I found out how beneficial raw food was, I decided that my mission in life was to tell everybody how great it was. So I started going around and I would do things like, I would preach, essentially. I would see my friend Steven eating French fries and I would say, "Hey Steven, what the hell are you doing? You're eating French fries? Do you know that those French fries, they're going to plug up your colon and then you're going to be sick? And in 30 years, that sickness will turn into cancer and you'll be more sick. And then when you can't handle it anymore, you're going to have to get chemo, you'll get even more sick." And he would he'd lose his appetite for one, and second of all, he'd kind of look at me like, "You're not very supportive. You're not friends don't say that." I would do that all the time. And I had my major realization when I called another friend of mine and I said, "Hey, do you want to come hang out?" And he said, "No, I don't really want to come hang out. I'm busy." And I knew that was a lie because he was never busy. He was always willing to hang out. And so the phone calls from my old friends stopped and I realized I had to change something.
And you did, huh?
And I did. And now I don't even tell people I eat raw food.
But you care about your friends, obviously, and about their health.
Yeah.
So there must be moments where it's a little bit difficult if somebody's really chowing down on something particularly noxious.
The only moments that are difficult for me as a friend who eats raw food are the moments when my friends get diagnosed with serious illnesses. More and more I'm seeing younger kids, young adults, younger people getting diagnosed with things as cancer and all kinds of supposedly irreversible diseases. In those times I find it challenging not to come out and say, "Hey, it could all be over. This is what you should do. But there are no shoulds. One of the most common questions I get asked is, what do you do in a day? When I wake up in the morning, I usually like to do some stretches. Sometimes I like to work on my dance moves right off the start. After that, after I'm all warmed up, I usually like to hunt down some breakfast. And stretched, that's when my day really begins.
Another question that I have for you is, can you give us some tips? I know you travel a lot, your family travels a lot. I would assume that could be difficult for people who have got kind of a regime down in their own kitchen. Can you give us some hints as to how to make it easier?
Sure. Traveling nowadays is very simple. We've got it down to a science. Instead of pulling off the freeway and going to McDonald's, we know where all the major health food stores are across the country. And with the internet, that's a very good asset to raw fooders and health food enthusiasts worldwide. Just figure, you know you're going to Detroit. You get on the internet, find out where the nearest health food store to the freeway is. You know exactly where to go. You even have a map. So getting food isn't a problem, because even your local big chain supermarket nowadays has organic,
Right.
which is great. A couple things that make it easier: we always have a big bowl in our car where we make a communal salad. We have a little cutting board, the little plastic type that you can roll up. It's very space efficient, easy to wash and travel with. A little knife, and sometimes at the health food store we'll just get a salad bar to go and eat it.
Right.
But more often than not, we just buy it, chop it up in the car, and eat right there, or at a rest area. It's not hard at all. A lot of times driving by, you'll see a big sign that says fresh produce. You hit the brakes and pull in, and we have fresh peaches. We eat a whole, couple peaches each. So it's not difficult at all. And prior to traveling too, you can just do a little bit of prep. Especially when you're first starting out, it helps to dehydrate some sunflower seeds with some namashoyu, which is like a tamari, a raw soy sauce on top.
For snacks.
For snacks.
Instead of Cheetos.
Instead of Cheetos. Yeah.
Are there any nutritional deficiencies or lacks or holes in a raw food diet that you know about?
There are many ways to eat raw food. There are hundreds of teachers, hundreds of speakers, hundreds of people who have published books on raw food, and each one of them tells you to eat raw food differently. Some people say don't eat nuts. Some people say don't eat fruits, because when you eat fruits, they turn into alcohol in your bloodstream, so you're an alcoholic if you eat fruit. Some people say don't eat greens, because greens are from the opium family, so if you're eating greens, then it's as if you're high all the time from opium. And all this information is very confusing, because at the same time these people say don't eat this, they don't tell you what you should eat. It's kind of like don't eat this, that's it. It's bad. So they don't give you an alternative. And we tried to follow all those people at one point in our lives, eliminated everything one by one from our diet until we had nothing but sprouts to eat. Then we met a lady who said don't eat sprouts because they have a toxin in them to prevent animals from eating them in the woods, so that it's like a survival mechanism. So okay, what do we eat now? Nothing. There's another guy we met who said breatharianism. That's when you live only off prana and light and air. That's the way to go. That's the only true way to live. However, the one prerequisite for breatharianism is that you have to have clean air. And at the time we were living next to Los Angeles, where clean air wasn't possible. From that moment on, we decided that in order to be healthy and feel healthy, we're just going to eat what our bodies craved within the perimeter of raw food.
Talk a little bit about the large scale of this and in the environmental impact. Are you interested in the environmental effects of our food system, and what do you think raw food could do in that connection?
I've done a lot of thinking about how raw food impacts the environment, and vice versa, how eating processed food affects the environment. And it's actually pretty incredible, not only in how beneficial eating raw foods is for the environment, but also how many different ways you can spin it. The most common one that comes to mind is that processed food is processed. It comes in packaging. It's commonly wrapped in 2 or 3 layers of plastic. There's a lot of waste that occurs after the food is eaten. Raw food, you go to the produce section, the apples aren't wrapped. When I buy them, I don't put them in a plastic bag, I just throw them in my basket or my cart. There is no waste, because the core of that apple, if I don't eat it, I put it in my compost and recycle it outside. So basically I'm taking, it's the cycle of life. I'm taking this apple that the tree dropped, I'm eating it, taking its seeds, throwing it in my compost, throwing it in my garden, and therefore planting a new apple tree. Whereas if I was eating chips, I would take chips that were processed and probably had some waste that went into a stream or a river or a meadow. I'm eating those, and then I'm taking the plastic wrapping and throwing it, that's going to a landfill. And then also, for humane reasons, I don't think that cows and pigs and goats, that their purpose in life is solely to be eaten by us. And I admit that I don't know. I'm still finding out what the optimal diet is, and I don't know if that can ever be said. Okay, this one thing has to work for everyone. But for me, it works. I know for myself that I got healthier, and I know for myself that when I look into a pig's eyes, into a cow's eyes, I don't have a strong desire to jump on its back and eat it. I want to pet it, or maybe feed it some hay or a carrot. And so those are two ways right there that I am taking back some of the impact that I would otherwise have on the earth.
Do you keep yourself to organic produce?
I keep myself very much to organic produce. I think that eating organic is very important. However, I will say that it's better to eat non-organic and eat raw than eat cooked food if you had the option. Basically, like I said earlier, if you're eating raw food, you're not creating the waste. But organic food is very good for our earth. It's very good for us. And there's just no argument against that. Spraying chemicals is depleting our soil. It's depleting our body of minerals and nutrition. It's not good for our environment. It's, nobody would want to eat a carrot that was poisoned by rat poison. And it's not quite as drastic, but over time, pesticides and insecticides accumulate in our bodies, in our streams, and our rivers. They're not good.
Do you get all the protein you want and need?
I get more than enough protein from my diet. In the US, the recommended daily allowance for protein is very much overestimated. If you compare that with the European recommended daily allowance, it's about 20% more already. And actually, most people would be surprised to find out that green leafy vegetables, have more than enough protein for us. Not the cow that we are taught we should eat in elementary school, but actually greens. They're more of a digestible protein for humans, not so complex. Our bodies have to work less. And then if we feel like we're not getting enough from greens, there's always nuts, seeds, beans, which you sprout and then make stuff like hummus, and lots and lots of like hemp seeds. You can eat hemp seeds, have a lot of protein. Drinking green smoothies is an important part of my everyday life. I like to drink green smoothies because they're quick and easy to make, because they're very inexpensive to make, and because they nourish my body and help me to forget about food. Now, there are many benefits of green smoothies. Some of the top benefits include that unlike juice, greens in smoothie form have fiber in them. And this fiber is good for all kinds of things, including diabetes, cancer. Fiber essentially works like a sponge, and it sucks up all the toxins and then eliminates them when you go to the bathroom. So that's benefit number one. Benefit number two is that they're a prime food for humans. Now we all hear about supplements that we should take, and this is nature's perfect food, this is nature's perfect food, and you can have that nature's perfect food for a small fee of $60 for a little tiny bottle. But if you read on the back of the best supplements, the ingredients include kale, Swiss chard, all kinds of green leafy vegetables. So I ask you, why not just eat those veggies fresh and get the ultimate benefit of them for less than 1/10 of the price? A bunch of kale is only $2. So they're inexpensive, they're nature's perfect food. They have chlorophyll in them. Now, Dr. Ann Wigmore, the mother of raw food, claimed that chlorophyll was very similar to the molecule of human blood. And she said that every time that somebody makes a smoothie out of greens, where the molecules are already ruptured and therefore the nutrients is free to be accessed, that they're essentially getting a blood transfusion every time, which is renewing their cells, making them vibrant. So that's yet another benefit of green smoothies. Benefit number 3 is that when you combine greens with fruits at a 60-40 ratio, you have 40% greens and 60% fruit. The fruits balance out the greens and take that chlorophyll taste away. Therefore, if you have little children or picky husbands, they can enjoy green smoothies because they taste wonderful. Little kids love them. So if you're interested to find out more about green smoothies in detail, my mom has written this book called Green for Life. You can find it on our website, Raw Family, or on Amazon.com, or in health food stores. But this is not why I'm here today. Today, I'm going to show you how easy it is to make a green smoothie. So you wake up in the morning, you do your stretches, and then you think, I'd really like to munch on something. You go to the fridge, and you see that you have a nice bunch of kale. Pull that out. Then you find a banana. Maybe there's an apple, half of an apple laying around. Perfect. And you find a nice ripe organic mango. All you need for making a green smoothie is a blender. Now this is kind of the cream of the crop. I have a Vitamix here. It's an expensive blender, costs $400, but you don't need a blender like this. You can just have a cheap $40 blender and you'll just need to blend it longer. So you take kale and you rip it and you throw it in. Now this is why the Vitamix is beneficial, because I can just save time by making everything in huge chunks. So if you do have a lesser grade blender, then you might have to chop it up a little bit more fine. Take half an apple, throw it in. Peel a banana, throw it in. Cut this mango. And the nice thing about using organic produce, like this mango, you don't have to peel the skin, because there is nutrition in the skin. Then you add some water to help it blend. And the final step is to blend it. Now you don't have to use kale and bananas and mangoes. The generic recipe for a green smoothie is 60% fruit, 40% green leafy vegetables, which means that you can walk over to your fridge and there's some Swiss chard. You can use that as the greens. You can use romaine lettuce as the greens. You might find a persimmon, which is a fruit. Throw that in. Really, whatever's available, whatever's on sale, it works. Once it's blended, all you have to do is pour it in a nice glass, make it look appealing, and then enjoy.
Is there any way in which you feel different from your friends who are not raw?
I think if there was one way that I felt different from my friends that are not raw, would be that through this alternative lifestyle, not through raw food per se, but just from being different all my life, I have become comfortable with just being me, who I am, and not caring so much what others think of me.
Why do you think that is?
Or
how would you link that to food?
I would link that to food because from an early age, since I was 9 years old, I was eating very differently from the rest of society. So from 3rd grade on, kids were saying, "Hi, you're different. You eat this kind of food. I eat this kind of food." So I was already different. I couldn't fit into the normal mold, and so their expectations for me might have been different. I didn't have to pretend that I was something that I wasn't, and it made me this exposure made me more and more comfortable with being different. So now, if I'm different in other ways, it doesn't bother me so much. I don't care what people think because I'm just comfortable with being different. Although I was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes, I have reason to believe that perhaps I was misdiagnosed and I in fact had type 2 diabetes. This does change a few things. My diabetes, if this were the case, was not as serious. But regardless, raw food made me healthy, and I figured that if I was misdiagnosed, there are probably many hundreds, if not thousands of people out there that were also misdiagnosed. And I think for those people, raw food is also beneficial. And even for if I had juvenile diabetes, or the people that did have juvenile diabetes, I think raw food could help them.
Hello. Hi, Sergei. How are you doing today? I'm doing very excellent. Glad to hear it. Say, did you hear about the new item in the news? I did not. Will you please inform me? Did you know that they have just found out that vegetables are very good for you? No way. To eat? To eat. That's not what I've done with my vegetables in the past. What sort of things have you done with your vegetables in the past? Well, they are very good for throwing at very bad actors. They are, yes, especially the carrots and potatoes, because they leave a mark. That would indeed leave a mark.
Health is very important to me. It is perhaps the most important thing in life.
Is it the most important thing?
Yes, even more important than waking up in a cave. What?
It's not the most important thing.
Health is not the most important thing in life. A lot of times,
Be happy, come on. What I eat in a day.
what I eat in a day, I eat some hay. Then I lay. Then I play. Then I lay in the hay.
And feel okay.
Then I feel okay, because I eat hay all day when I play. When I eat in a day, I consider myself a very resourceful person, and if I ever get wealthy, I'm gonna buy probably 50 pounds of almonds, maybe 100 pounds, blend them, make almond milk, fill my bathtub with that almond milk and lay in it for a nice half hour.
Oh, wasteful.
What?
Just throw it